Coming up on Tech News Today, Google adds your email to search results. Steam's going to carry accounting software and stuff. And why doesn't anybody want an iPad mini? All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, August 9th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by the new Squarespace. Squarespace introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website or blog. Plus, more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs with automatic device scaling. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT8. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And we are going to attempt to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting with the top 10 stories of the day in the news feeds. Google claims they're building the next generation of search one tiny little piece at a time, and a few of those pieces came out today. Google's Senior Vice President of Search, Amit Singhal, posted Wednesday evening that voice search capability already in Jelly Bean for Android users is coming to iOS devices soon. Singhal also announced a limited field trial of Gmail search integrated into regular Google searches. While the Gmail results would only show up when you're logged in and only show up for you, Jeremiah Grossman of Whitehead Security posted on Twitter that the hacker in him likes this idea.
Yeah, everyone else is like, really?
Like, no.
Private stuff, public results, weird. Get ready for the ThinkPad Tablet 2, just announced by Lenovo, which kicks off the grand inclusion of Windows 8 into the company's PCs and devices. This tablet has a 10.1-inch screen, weighs under 600 grams, and is 9.8 millimeters thick. Inside, you'll find Intel's Atom processor, codenamed Clover Trail, expected in October with the Windows 8 Pro OS, which Microsoft will ship on October 26th, although no word on pricing yet.
Starting September 5th, Steam will have more than just games. Valve announced that you'll be able to use Steam to buy non-gaming software. It'll work like an app store, simpler installations, automatic updates, and data will also be savable to a Steam engine space, a Steam cloud space, excuse me. Valve says that the Valve says the first crop of apps will range from creativity to productivity.
Can't wait to save my Quicken files to a Steam engine. Nokia announced Thursday it has sold Qt, the cross-platform development framework, to Digia, a Finnish software services company. Digia had previously acquired a portion of Qt from Nokia. Qt allows developers to write an application once and deploy it on multiple operating systems.
At last, my app has come along.
I thought we were at a wedding for a second.
To the web app.
Okay.
Oh, your app is
Right,
coming along.
the app.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, we are at a wedding. Congratulations, Tom.
Yay.
Wait. Popular newsreader Pulse, known and loved by many iOS and Android users, has a new web version. Pulse.me is built entirely from HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript, and is accessible from most major browsers on PCs and mobile devices. It'll work well for existing Pulse app users, too. Content will sync between versions.
I said we'd report good RIM news if it ever happened, so here goes.
Yay.
RIM will not have to pay over $140 million to M-Formation over a patent dispute. Now, RIM was found to infringe M-Formation's patents, but the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California has overturned that ruling. However, it might not be all good news because M-Formation does have the option to appeal.
All right. The folks who brought you the Flame malware, suspected to be state sponsors in the U.S. and or Israel, are at it again. Researchers at Kaspersky Labs report the new malware called Gauss steals system information, targets banking credentials in Lebanon, and carries a mysterious payload that could be destructive against critical infrastructure. Gauss has been found infecting at least 2,500 machines, most of them in Lebanon.
You know how we all keep hearing those rumors that Samsung might buy RIM and then Samsung denies any interest and we all get really excited that maybe Samsung's lying?
Is another shoe about to drop?
After yesterday's news that maybe once again Samsung was interested in buying RIM or at least licensing BB10 software, RIM shares jumped in anticipation of the great news. And then Samsung once again flatly denied the rumors to several media outlets, saying, "We have not considered the acquisition of Research in Motion or licensing BB10. I think this is the definition of insanity.
Yeah, keep repeating the same thing. So how long do we wait
results.
before we start the next rumor? Like couple days.
Another 6 months.
Later in the show.
Hey, are you wondering how those hoppers in the TV show The Wire would deal with smartphones, you know, because the burner phones that doesn't play in the smartphone world? Check out the new iOS app, Mini Burner. The app lets you buy a phone number that lasts 20 minutes, 7 days, or 60 text messages, whichever you choose. The app costs $2 and comes with 20 minutes of phone time. Company asks only for your real phone's number when you sign up, but it does stress it will cooperate with law enforcement and it prohibits criminal uses.
I wanted to talk about an Akamai study saying that global broadband speeds are increasing, but then Google did something stupid. The FTC just hit Google with a $22.5 million fine for tracking Safari users via cookies. It's the largest fine ever for a violation of an FTC order. Google was last seen digging through its couch to find the money.
Let's take a quick break and thank our sponsor for this episode of Tech News Today, the new Squarespace.com. Now faster and easier than ever to create a high-quality website or blog. Squarespace launched a new content management system that gives you the ability to have your site look perfect on whatever device the visitor is looking at. So from a technical perspective, it's cool. It's got a new code base, HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript foundations, all new. It's faster. It's more flexible. Still the same great templates. In fact, a bunch of new templates, but still the easy way to customize your website without having to get into code if you don't want to. And Squarespace now automatically resizes your images in 7 different formats and recodes your page for the device that it's being sent to. So it looks right on a smartphone, it looks right on a tablet, it looks right on a desktop, looks right on one of those huge monitors as well.
It looks right on.
It just looks right. You don't have to take our word for it, though. Go try it for free, squarespace.com. You don't have to give them a credit card or anything. And you can sign up, use the new Instagram plugin, use those Twitter plugins, Flickr plugins. You can even import your old site and see what it looks like in the new templates. And like I said, no credit card is needed. But then if you decide to keep it, use this offer code TNT8 and get 10% off your first purchase on new Squarespace accounts, including monthly and annual plans. In fact, the annual plan is the best deal, not just because you get 10% off the entire year if you pay for a year at once, but you also get a free domain name with registration. And that's a domain name that's yours, not Squarespace's. You can point it at your site. All of a sudden, you've got a professional-looking site at a domain name that you chose. That's squarespace.com. Use the offer code TNT8. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Very happy to welcome Vlad Savov, senior editor at The Verge, to the show this morning. Thank you for joining us, Vlad.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's great to have new folks sharing their perspective with us. And we're going to start off with this new Google search engine post. Iyaz, what's this indexing my Gmail about?
Okay, so this is something you can opt into right now. It's an experimental thing that Google's trying out, and it's a limited field trial as Google's putting it. It'll put Gmail results in your Google searches. So if you were searching for, let's say I was looking for Tom's contact information on a regular Google search, and I'm signed in, and he's a contact of mine, I'll be able to quickly do a search that way, and the results for Gmail will show up on the right pane. And a lot of people are freaking out about this concept because it does put some information on what looks like the public Google search, but it's not. This is not something everyone's going to see. This is something when you sign in.
It's also in a different. It's not mixed in with regular search results. It's in its own box over on the right-hand side, pretty clearly marked.
You can even hide the results if somebody's looking over your shoulder. And
it's a bit like the knowledge graph. I mean, the knowledge graph is expanding as well. That's the visual thing on the right side where if you look up somebody like Sarah Lane, you'll see a little bit of information, like maybe like a Wikipedia profile. But there's also this new thing on the top called the carousel, which will show a browsable visual list, and you'll see search results if you look up like famous seas or something. You'll be able to find different things over there.
Famous seas?
Seas, yeah.
Like
the Mediterranean?
And
the dead.
Or like not the
red.
letter, not the letter, but yeah. I'm not sure why I thought seas, but apparently that's what I wanted to say.
Caspian.
Exactly.
I could just keep going.
But that for me has not been enabled yet. That's rolling out soon. And then Google's also updating its apps for iOS. There's a microphone that works a lot like there's a voice search that works a lot like the one that works on Jelly Bean, but it seems a little bit smarter than the one that's on Jelly Bean, because in the ad that they run for Google, you can ask it things and then it will give you answers with the voice that at least my Nexus 7 doesn't do that just yet with certain things like movies in Petaluma. It does not give me any results that way other than text. But in their video for iOS, it looks like they're bringing a lot of Siri-like functionality to Google.
So as far as the email showing up in search results, I don't know that I have this, privacy, I don't like the two being mixed view that I've seen some other people voice already. What I don't like is Google saying, here are all the services that you probably use, and you're logged into Google. So instead of letting you keep them separate and use them however you want, we're all just going to dump them onto one page for you. I know you can collapse that view and you can hide it if you want, but this is sort of along the lines of when I'm typing an email to Tom and Gmail says, perhaps you'd like to consider adding Iyaz onto this thread as well because the three of you guys email each other a lot. That sort of thing just bothers me. It's Google trying to influence my behavior, and I just want that stuff gone. I just don't like Google trying to tell me that I would like to search my email when I'm clearly searching something on the web. The two are very different to me.
I totally agree. I have to say, the thing I always thought about Google's search from a few years ago was that so much better than everybody else. What is Google really going to do? That's kind of the way I've also felt about Twitter is how do you evolve something which is clearly so much superior to all the alternatives. And the trouble is that when you don't have an idea on how to fundamentally improve your product, the thing that people tend to do is just add stuff. And exactly as Sarah was just saying, try and mesh things together. And they're meshing them together in a way that isn't really helpful to anybody. Like that is a perfect example of, would you like to add this extra person to your conversation? I've never used that feature.
Me either.
I think it's been around for months, maybe years. Never had to use it. I see it. It doesn't really bother me because it's just a line, but I never need to use it. And the thing, as far as I'm concerned, is if I go back to Google search from a few years ago, which was just really basic and text-based, and just had one column of results, I still find that as useful as I find the modern Google search. I don't even use Instant all that much. I don't necessarily find all the extra columns, extra options, all that appealing. And this seems like just another step in this whole, well, we'll cross-pollinate things and then see how it appeals to people. But I don't really think this is the right solution.
I like the voice search. Okay, that's useful. That's something that I could possibly take advantage if it works. I haven't found it on Jelly Bean to be working that great, but I haven't really used it consistently for a long time. But I agree with you, Vlad and Sarah, both. Like, I just don't see myself using Gmail search in Google. I don't see myself wanting to. If I want to search for something in Gmail, I go to Gmail. And the same thing with the suggested, if I want to email someone, I will type their name in. Yeah, I love that it auto-completes and suggests email addresses when I start typing someone's name, but I don't need it to tell me who I might want to email.
See, I'm thinking this is actually part of a bigger movement for Google in general. I know when I was testing it out, I would search for something like my flights, and it would check my email and show me information about my flights that are upcoming. So instead of it going, okay, I'm getting a bunch of results that are not relevant to me, I can just use this one bar to search everything throughout Google, because I'm pretty sure this is probably would expand to Google Calendar, and it'll expand to every other Google property, that if you're searching for something, you start going, instead of going, okay, is this just limited to the web search, or am I searching everything? Like people are getting used to that with their devices. If you have your Android phone, it searches for your apps, it searches for your contacts, it searches for lots of things there. If you have that same experience on the web, where all your Google accounts are being searched while you're still getting third-party results, I think that would be I think it's pretty compelling because you just use one bar to search for everything.
Yeah, but I don't want one bar to search for everything. When I'm in Chrome, I don't know. I can't think of a situation where I'm not already in my inbox that I'm going to search for an email.
I guess I do a lot of searches through the Chrome bar. So
yeah.
I guess I would just start typing somebody's contact information and let it just show up as a search result.
But you know what that's going to do? Okay, let's say I'm right. I'm always in the Gmail tab when I decide I want to search for an email, and then I type it into the Chrome bar. It takes me out of Gmail to the search results page, and then I have to click back into Gmail. That's jarring.
Well, I guess starting.
Or you end up opening two instances of Gmail, which is, if you have multiple accounts and sign-ins active, that gets tricky anyway. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of when I used to have a My Yahoo start page, and I had all of this stuff on my My Yahoo start page, and it was customized based on what I was doing and who I was talking to and the weather and the news and everything. And it's like I know that people still use a lot of those customized screens, but they have fallen out of favor. It kind of went back to, we all have these tools. Let people search for stuff the way that they want. They'll figure it out. We won't customize for you anymore. You can customize for yourself. I feel like this is Google kind of going back to that. Here's all the stuff that we want you to see on our page in the way that we've decided to design it. And that just bothers me.
Well, they are killing iGoogle, so maybe that's what they're doing. They're like, let's put it over there.
It's the new iGoogle.
They don't have Marissa Meyer around anymore to stop them, to say, keep it simple. We mentioned in the news fuse that Steam has officially announced that it will be adding non-game software starting on September 5th to the Steam client. Last month, there was a leak that indicated that the kinds of software in there would be accounting, animation and modeling, audio production, education, photo editing, a bunch of different things. Valve hasn't actually said what particular software they will be selling, but they did say that software makers should submit their software through Steam Greenlight. That launches August 30th. And that is the device or the program that allows not just game makers now, but also other software makers to submit their software to Steam. Valve decides what software they want to put in the Steam store, but they're allowing users to vote on what software they would like to see. It's not a definitive vote, but Valve says it kind of helps them settle their arguments. It's kind of the way we use our subreddit, which is, we decide what stories go in there, but the subreddit kind of helps us on the stories that are on the line or expose us to stories we wouldn't have thought of. The Steam Greenlight is going to expose them to the opinions of the audience about the kind of software they'd like to see. Steam says users really want this. Vlad, do you think Steam users want to buy accounting software through the Steam client?
Well, accounting software is it's a great way to load the question, to be honest with you.
Okay, you're right. I loaded the question a little bit. Do you think people want to use this for non-game stuff?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't think I'm in the minority, which is a rarity for me, but I don't think I'm in the minority in having some really positive feelings towards Steam. I think most people feel really happy and, as I say, positive toward the service. They feel that Valve is an innovative company. They feel like the Steam service, I mean, let's face it, it was the original digital distribution platform before we had the Mac App Store and before the Windows Store, which is about to kick off with Windows 8. And I do find this really exciting. Like, okay, nobody's really going to jump into it and accounting software and whatnot to on Steam, but all the little apps, all the smaller things, the functionality things, the to-do lists, etc., all the things that are popular on the Mac, they can have, for one thing, they can have an outlet to, or rather the developers of those apps can have an outlet to distribute those on Windows. I mean, I appreciate Microsoft wants to do that, but having an alternative, having a competitor is always good. We've seen that Steam also has the infrastructure to make all of these things happen with its games distribution. I mean, apps are going to be, just easy. I mean, we're talking about 20, 50 megabyte downloads, whereas Steam distributes, massive gigabytes of games. So, I mean, they already have, as I say, the infrastructure in place. They have the user goodwill to attract developers, because developers know that people already have Steam, are familiar with Steam. Steam already has people's credit card numbers, etc. So to me, this is really exciting. There's just so much potential there. And the other thing is that, from my understanding, Steam is also going to be cross-platform. Mm-hmm. Right. Which you don't have with either the Mac App Store or with the Windows Store. And a second other thing is that people have complained about sandboxing in the Mac App Store. Now it gives people another alternative there.
Yeah, I love the cross-platform possibility here, because they are making this for Mac and PC. That doesn't mean every piece of software will be cross-platform, just like every game isn't necessarily cross-platform. But when it is, that becomes really convenient. We can joke about accounting software, but if Quicken was better and was available cross-platform, and the cloud save was reliable and secure and encrypted, and I trusted it, the idea of having my Quicken software available on either my Mac or my PC with a secure cloud save that's backed up, pretty appealing to me.
I guess I'm hesitant with this because I'm thinking of Adobe Air. Like, that was supposed to give you cross-platform applications. They ran everywhere. They turned out to be quite
but that's not
hefty
what this
and
is.
awful. Well,
this isn't coding once.
I'm just hoping that it works better than that.
Well, have you used a game? I've done this where I have a game that I bought for Windows, but then it also has a Mac version, and I can play it on the Mac.
I haven't tried that yet, so it's kind of like it'll just sync up. That would be interesting. But I mean, For productivity software, Microsoft's obviously fighting that with their own Office suite, and they're going to have syncing abilities. So, I mean, Steam looks like they're trying to gear up for the future. It's not just, I mean, Valve is. They're trying to figure out, okay, what else are we going to do other than gaming? If Microsoft is going to have games in their store, we better have something else in ours. So it's definitely a future-thinking move. I'm really kind of curious to see how well it's going to do against other stores and what other places can actually go ahead and try the same model. I'm sure Amazon's going to try their own store on Mac and Windows, and I'm sure that maybe Google will do this with the same. But this is interesting to see a gaming company move over into other software.
Especially since they have so many users. I mean, they've got upwards of 40 million users who equate, at this point, Steam for gaming. But if they really enjoy the platform, why not offer other stuff and see if it sticks? Yeah, maybe people aren't going to end up using Steam for accounting, even though Tom's excited about that. It's like, that seems like
accounting.
It seems like it's a little bit of like, which one of these things is not like the others? Yeah, I don't know. But maybe it will work so well that it becomes something above and beyond gaming, which is, hey, I mean, that's a great place to start, but it's clearly a platform that's capable of a variety of things. Photo editing, software training, video production. I mean, I love the idea of this. It makes it a lot more attractive to me.
And Steam coming to Linux, too. So it could work for Linux users as well, possibly. Again, that is a lot of ifs, but I'm like Vlad. I'm excited about this. I can't wait to see what it does. I'm also a little excited about all these Kickstarter projects that are coming to fruition.
Yeah, there's actually been a flurry of discussion online about what makes a successful Kickstarter project. We talked a few days ago, I guess it was last week now, about Dalton Caldwell's story about how he was almost strong-armed into being acqui-hired by Facebook and said, you know what, not only am I not interested in you buying app.net, which I am building to potentially compete with the Facebook app, not App Store, Facebook app Center, thank you. But I'm going to go ahead and build my own open source version of this because I never want to use either the Facebook or Twitter platforms at all because they're kind of evil and they're only interested in money, and that's not what these are supposed to be about. Now, his project, app.net, is a Kickstarter project, and it's getting a lot of attention because the idea is it really looks, there's an alpha that's already shipped, and it really looks a lot like a Twitter competitor. However, it's not a free Twitter competitor. It's a $50 membership annually Twitter competitor, which will keep things like advertising and the way that advertising has motivated Twitter and kind of scared and upset some people off of something like app.net. But it really, really makes it harder to scale. And I would say pretty much impossible to scale in any sort of size rivaling that of Twitter because, you know, many people that are on Twitter are never going to pay any money. Even $1 a year would keep people off certain Twitter competitors. Now, they have 4 days to finish the Kickstarter project. App.net needs another 200,000 give or take. And the idea is that when you compare it with something like Ouya, right? So Ouya, their Kickstarter pledge drive is over. They wanted under $1 million. They wanted $950,000. And with all of the donations from the public, they have about $8.5 million. So an absolute 190% smash hit. I don't know, math is hard, but anyway, it was
it's a lot.
Yeah, a really, really successful project. Now, you compare that to something like app.net, which is, in theory, a really, really good idea. It's coming from the right place. It appeals to a lot of people. Why is it so hard for them to raise enough money to hit their goal? Now, I do want to point out that in the last about 2.5 hours, it has gone up. App.net has gone up about 12,000. And Dalton Caldwell, who's, of course, the mastermind behind app.net, wrote a recent post and said, listen, I know somebody who works at Kickstarter who says the momentum on Kickstarter projects, I mean, not 100% of the time, but the vast majority of them are in the first, 3 days and the last weekend. So he still has a long weekend. Doesn't mean that he won't hit his goal, but it's not, it's a slow creep type of a thing. This is not a smash hit. So now it's kind of like, all right, well, what's the difference here? This is something that people want, just like they want a video game console like Ouya. So what's the big difference? I mean, to me, Ouya is a console that allows people to play the games that they love in a new, interesting, fun way. app.net would attempt to replace, let's say, a Twitter conversation with a new one. So you're not still enjoying the Twitter that you know and love, but somehow getting around advertising, you're starting over.
Yeah.
And I think that that's fundamentally the problem, is that once, you know, it's almost like Twitter and Facebook get that too big to fail situation, because so many people are on them. So yeah, you know, you can go start something else, but then that's more almost like a path experience where you've got a smaller number of people who've all said, yeah, I don't want to use Twitter either. Let's do our own thing. Let's pay a little bit of money to keep the keep the experience clean, but you're not going to get those same numbers, so it ends up not really being a Twitter competitor.
It's you know, I look at this and I think of Diaspora.
Yes.
Which I actually have up on my screen, Jason. Diaspora looks a lot like Google Plus, as I've noted before, but open source and free competitor to Twitter and Facebook.
And was always marketed as, this is the Facebook that we should have had from the beginning.
And don't forget Identica, another open source Twitter competitor. And then there's, you know, app.net has their beta up. They all look fairly similar. They all work fairly similar. So when I see that app.net wants $50 from me, I want to know what I'm getting for that $50, and I'm not quite clear on what that is.
Well, I think in essence, it's. I mean, if you actually read the Kickstarter,
if people aren't going for Diaspora and they're not going for Identica in great numbers, why are they going to go for this?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, on the Kickstarter page for app.net, where it explains the project, says, we believe the advertising-supported social services are so consistently and inextricably at odds with the interests of users and developers that something must be done. Help us create the service we all wish existed. Sounds great to me. That does sound good to me. But again, $50 a year, I mean, okay. Is that really the answer? Is that our only answer?
In the video, Dalton was talking about how the idea is they're not building a product for advertisers. If the only people paying are the customers, then they can actually make a product that customers want. So if you have feedback, they have to listen, because otherwise they won't improve without effectively your permission, because you're the person paying for the service. And it's a novel concept when it comes to a web service like this. This isn't like a productivity piece of software that could make or break your business. This is about talking to your friends effectively, and you don't want to see an ad. The question is, do you want to pay $50, or are you going to put in some kind of extension on your browser to remove the ads? I don't know if your experience is going to change too much. It definitely seems like an uphill battle to see maybe it's weird. Sarah, you said $1 a year probably would keep people off of a competitor. I'm thinking that's probably very true. $50 a year seems like it's almost like it's a premium club. And it's like, well, do you want to be a part of the premium club? Or do you want to stay away from it? It just seems a little, I could see people looking at it immediately as it's a little snobby because it's $50 a year, you know?
Oh, the pitch that you just gave kind of sounds like democracy via capitalism, whereby you spend your money and then you get some sort of democratic right in terms of determining the future. But the thing that I've noticed with most so-called democracies is that you get less for your money than you actually invest. And so I can't answer Tom's question about what do you actually get for your $50, because I don't know the answer either. But to get back to the very original question, which is why do some Kickstarter projects take off and some don't? I think the distinction here, and with Iyaz and all the others, is that Kickstarter's original premise and appeal for people was that you get something kind of exclusive and kind of special for investing early. You know, so a lot of Kickstarter projects were like, I'm going to build really awesome robots, right? And if you guys invest at this stage, you'll get one of the first ones and they'll be really special, etc. And then the investor says to himself, if this works out, I'll get a robot. If it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. So there's a tangible, a physical thing there. So that's one part of it with Iyaz. I think another part of it is Iyaz has Yves Behar, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
As a designer, and it has Android as a big selling point. So again, you kind of combine the two. And it feels like it's more credible and more concrete than most console projects. So I can see why that's appealing to people. But when you get to app.net, again, Sarah was reading from the website, and what their pitch was, we want to build such and such social network. Well, that doesn't really connect to the user/early investor, which Kickstarter is trying to attract. You know, it's what they're trying to build, and you're just trying to support it. Whereas with other things, even intangible things, I think there was Neil Stevenson wanted to make a game, I believe. I don't know
Yeah.
He wanted to revolutionize sword fighting games.
The Subutai Corporation is doing Clang, sword fighting game. Exactly.
Right. Did he actually reach his goal on Kickstarter?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Great. So that actually supports the point I'm about to make, which is that in the case of him, it's an intangible thing. It's not something that you're going to have for yourself as a Kickstarter investor, but what you get for yourself is a sort of a feel-good feeling, because then you can say, well, I changed the genre of sword fighting games. If it works out ultimately, it's something that you can brag about. Whereas with app.net, I don't know that people get that same sort of feeling.
Yeah, you get, as a member tier, you get to reserve a username. So you get to sign up and make sure you get the username you want. That's kind of cool. Or if you go to the developer tier, you get early access to the API, and you can develop your software on the platform, which if you're interested in doing that, that's kind of cool. But it's not as cool as getting a robot or a sword fighting game or something like that, or an Ouya console.
We should mention, too, that app.net, the donations page, it's not actually a Kickstarter project, but it's modeled exactly like one. Yeah, same idea.
Correct.
Same idea.
Well, speaking of ideas, let's talk about Marissa Mayer over at Yahoo. While Google's adding this and that to her once vaunted simple product, she's trying to get people to just focus on product.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal had a piece on Marissa Mayer and what she's doing with Yahoo. She's been there for 3 weeks, and so what's been going on? Well, she's focusing on products. That's what she did at Google. That's what she's doing at Yahoo. She's actually she wants to repair Yahoo's advertising business. Now, this is something that's kind of countered the last interim CEO, Ross Levinson, wanted to get rid of some advertising technology assets, and Mayer stopped that sale. So they're going to keep working on advertising. There's actually plans to revamp Yahoo Search. I know what you guys are thinking. Like, Bing runs the search.
Yeah,
what could Yahoo possibly do? They control the way the results look. So you could see a knowledge graph thing showing up, or you could see less stuff, because Mayer's pretty famous for keeping it really simple. So not sure what Yahoo's going to look like. There's also more interest in getting Yahoo content all over the web via plugins. So like if you had a WordPress plugin, you could have like Yahoo video showing up. They just want to, I think it's called Play on the Web is their little strategy. And they're working on getting more programmers and engineers, because she's an engineer. She wants more engineers. Apparently she's reaching out to current and former Google employees and executives. It looks like she's going to be tapping some pretty powerful people to be heading. Not beheading, but to head.
I hope not.
They already did that to previous
there's a
CEOs.
space.
To head up Yahoo and to also work on the engineering departments. What's really, I think, one of the weirder things is Mayer's actually talking to software engineers via email using a shared email list called DevRandom. So she'll just contact people and ask how it's going and figure out what's going on. So she's got a really hands-on approach everywhere, and seems like a lot of movement happening in Yahoo.
Now, why do you think that's weird, though?
That a
I think
CEO
that sounds really proactive, but why is it weird?
I would think it's weird just because you have somebody at the top of the entire company, and now they're just, you go down, like, if I'm sitting here and this is a small company, but if somebody like Bill Gates sent me an email, I'd be like, this is spam. This can't be real. But if this is your boss telling you, okay, look, I want to know what you're doing in engineering. I actually know what I'm doing. Or maybe it's another, like a Scott Thompson joke, effectively. Maybe around makes everybody laugh. Oh, yeah, I actually know what I'm talking about as an engineer versus your fake degree. I just think I would think that Mayer would spend a lot more time worrying about the grand strategy and not necessarily on the engineering aspects, on the minutia of that.
Well, she can't do both. In fact, it helps with the grand strategy if you're touching base. She doesn't have to be micromanaging, just talking like, hey, so what are your concerns? What's going on? What's getting in your way?
Well, and also, is this company structured appropriately? Are the engineers reporting to the right people? What do you do all day, Iyaz, engineer, who is one of 400 that works for me? I'm being Marissa Mayer, of course. I think that makes a lot of sense. She's trying to get to know her own company better. She probably came in, and as we all said, it's a mess. And let's figure out how to restructure.
Hey, Vlad, do you think these moves sound like Yahoo's got a direction? Like, do they have a chance now?
Well, I don't know about direction. I think it's way too early to go that far. But I agree with you, but I would put it as it's unorthodox rather than weird. Most CEOs tend to do the whole isolationist, I'm at the top, there are people between me and the foot soldiers. Which I think actually gets in the way of exactly what Tom was saying. If you don't understand, again, as Marissa was saying, the product, how can you strategize the way that you pitch it to people and the way you distribute it to people? You can't just assume this is decent or good or just something we have to sell. Like, that's the marketing person's job. As a CEO, you need to understand your products. And the thing is, if I'm in her position, the first thing I'll do is get a Yahoo email address and just start using that exclusively and intensively. And then appreciate just how terrible and disgusting the web client for Yahoo Mail is. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is I might set up a fantasy football team and a league, because actually and weirdly, Yahoo Fantasy Football is, I don't know how much consensus there is, but I think it's the best service for fantasy sports. And sports are a big deal. You can attract a whole heap of attention and audience by being the leader in fantasy sports. I mean, you guys being Americans, you invented those, but they spread. There's fantasy sports in the UK and across Europe with football. And it's just, I mean, to me, it's just like one of the opportunities that Yahoo has. I don't think Yahoo has many. I totally agree that most of the things that the company offers and does at the moment are kind of dead ends. But I do feel like Flickr is still a strong property, even though it hasn't been updated for a decade or whatever. I feel like fantasy sports are another one. And I feel like Mail is something that Yahoo could improve really easily and quickly. So that's a good trifecta of things that they can address to start with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think she should be in there, not only using the products, but occasionally talking to product engineers. Obviously, not to the exclusion of creating the grand strategy, but just, getting as much feedback from as much different places as possible. I think it's a good idea. Got a couple of different approaches to copyright law on the internet today. One showed up on the front of page of the Pirate Bay. It's a 3-minute video created by some folks in the financial industry who say they don't have much to do with the internet industry, but they're tired of seeing people getting arrested in different countries for various copyright infringement offenses. So they spent $5,000 of their own money to create what's a pretty high quality production video showing a tale of a senator who's probably supposed to be Chris Dodd. He's called Chris Rod, taking over a music industry association. Then it goes from there to the police storming a London flat and manhandling a guy who's on a computer and breaking photos. And then if you skip forward a little bit, you'll see they've got the infringing computer user on a plane in the orange jumpsuit with the black hood on, and they're very dramatically revealing.
And this part is really
yeah. Is this it?
So what did this kid do?
Copyright infringement.
No, really, what did he do?
Copyright infringement.
No, really, what did he do? Copyright infringement.
Wow, what a disgusting guy.
It's pretty overdramatic.
It is.
Pretty crazy, and it's just meant to grab attention. But then, probably won't grab as much attention, but as a more reasoned approach to these sort of things is a response to the White House. White House has a request for comment on IP enforcement going on until Friday, by the way. If you wanted to make a comment, you can too. But it's made by somebody who switched sides. Paul Brigner used to be the CTO of the MPAA. He defended SOPA. Some people think he defended it kind of listlessly, but afterwards he started working for the Internet Society and has become an anti-SOPA advocate. And he wrote a very long, impassioned piece of advice. So that now you're showing the Al Jazeera documentary. That's a different thing. But he wrote a long, impassioned piece of advice to the White House saying, we need balance. He wasn't saying we don't need copyright law. He's saying we need balance with people's speech rights, with people's fair use rights, and we need to actually kind of figure out a middle ground here. You got a couple different approaches. One's going to work for some people, one's going to work for others, but just an interesting contrast out there. Vlad, do you think either one of these do any good? Will the White House listen to Brigner, and does making a high-quality production, over-dramatic video sway anybody's opinion who's important?
I don't know. Is the easy answer. I mean, to be honest with you, that's more a question of how American politics works rather than copyright itself, because the underlying issue is one that we've had, and the underlying question is one that we've had for way too long, like an enormous amount of time, and nobody seems to be able to get their heads around it because it's the old thing of applying outdated business models to new forms of distribution. So the first thing is, whether you're talking music, movies, anything, all of these companies used to distribute their content via the physical medium, right? So it was either a CD, it was a videotape, it was a tape, it was whatever, and it was built-in scarcity, right? So you couldn't just take a CD. Well, okay, CD is a bad example, but until you could copy things in a really frictionless manner, the way that you can now, piracy was kind of constrained by the fact that people couldn't make those copies so quickly and they couldn't distribute them so quickly. Whereas right now, you can take a piece of music, you can take a movie, copy it, upload it, torrent it, whatever. I mean, that's the other thing. With torrents, you're kind of crowdsourcing the sharing of the whole thing. So there is no scarcity, and you're trying to artificially build it in. And this is why things are failing, because in order to artificially build it in, you have to put up all these barriers, all of these constraints, which then also get in the way of people who've legitimately purchased the content and all of that stuff. So to me, like, I can see the solution. Everybody can see the solution. It's just the fact that everybody has also been ignoring the solution. Everybody from the business and, to be honest with you, from the US regulatory side, which is that the solution is to figure out how to monetize the content that you're making without trying to sell it the same way you used to sell CDs and videotapes.
I think one of the comments in Brigner's note that I think that needs to be pushed is the idea that all this legislation and all these treaties, this should be open and transparent, because these are things that are affecting everybody. Like when things like Akhtar are negotiated in secret and then it's found out and then published. I mean, these are things that are going to affect every single person who wants content, which is pretty much anybody who likes entertainment, which is everybody.
Almost everybody,
right,
yeah.
So almost everybody wants to be able to watch a movie, and then you find out there's all kinds of weird restrictions that you had no idea that you signed away your rights. It'd be nice to know that, okay, look, we're legislating this, so here are some open and transparent measures to show you, look, this is happening. So if you want to comment as well, now you can. So it's that part which I think needs to be, well, I guess instituted. It'd be great if that was very open.
But Iyaz, when has that actually ever been the case? I mean, particularly for the US, it's kind of terrible of me to be outside the US and criticizing the US legal system. But when have you ever seen a piece of legislation, for example, not named in a euphemistic fashion? Like just straight up telling you, this is the core of this law,
like
this is why we're doing it.
Yeah, like the SHIELD Act, which I think is about...
Right, and the Patriot Act. Was it about patriotism?
Left behind.
Yeah, and this is, like the Kitten Puppies Act, those kinds of things. Yeah, I mean, I see your point there. I just mean that it's not that often, I guess. I mean, the U.S. has got some policies, but when it comes to comment periods and things, there are notices. It's just they're not exactly publicized because the budget for that is not exactly grand. It's like, oh, it actually might be $1 grand. It's like, here's your notice. It's in the Federal Register, which is on a web page, 40 clicks deep. So what's notice is notice. I don't know how you could publicize it any better, but you make a good point, Vlad.
I mean, also, just to augment that point a little bit, the US is not alone in that respect. The UK government and legislature does the exact same thing. They're essentially drafting up legislation the way that people draft up press releases. But again, that goes to the subject of politics and the way that we do it nowadays, as opposed to the subject of copyright and regulation.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot to get the establishment, especially the political establishment, to shift on this. But SOPA was the first time that there was success at getting them to shift on anything. And I think that Brigner switching sides is one of the most important things in that negotiation, in that discussion to look at. And I think the consumer does win out usually. It's painful, it takes a long time, and there's setbacks along the way. But the consumer is going to win on this because the people who are clinging to the old business models that Vlad was talking about are not going to be in charge forever. And when younger people who grew up with infinitely copyable media are going to look at this and say, this is a ridiculous way to try to regulate things. Let's come up with something new, if it hasn't been come up with already. Let's lighten up and finish up with a little survey.
Yes, surveys. 1,900 folks were surveyed by the coupon site Coupon Codes for You. But it's interesting. They were surveyed whether they were more excited or more likely to buy an iPhone 5 or the newest generation of the iPhone, expected to come out within a month or so, or the iPad mini, if that's what it's going to be called. Next smaller iPad expected to come out, if all goes well, around the same time.
2 rumored products that are unconfirmed.
2 rumored, unconfirmed products. Let's assume, for the sake of discussion, that they'll both be released around the same time. And folks might say, well, I've got precious money. I can have one or the other, but not both. So of those 1,900 folks, 78% said iPhone 5. That's actually the one that I'm most excited about. That's where I'd be most likely to put my money. Now, what's interesting about the folks that were surveyed, more than 3/4 of these 1,900 people already owned an Apple product. 64% have an iPhone. 40%, almost 40% have an iPad. Now, the iPhone is older in many cases. There's been a longer cycle between the last time that you were able to get a brand new shiny iPhone. So I'm sure that factors into it a little bit. But it kind of also, we were talking about an iPad mini here. So this is the product that's not just supposed to be the next iPad. It's not, do you want a new iPhone or do you want a new iPad? It's, do you want a new iPhone that's going to do what your iPhone does and potentially be a little bit bigger, a little bit faster, but basically just a better version of the model that you already have? Or do you want sort of an unproven model of the iPad? And many of these people might already have the newest iPad, which is expensive, has the Retina screen. There's all sorts of things that may not actually be part of this iPad mini model. I mean, I've kind of been thinking this for a couple of months now, once I started to believe that there really was an iPad mini coming. I'm going to get one because I host a show called iPad Today.
Sure,
But I don't really think that most people want both. In fact, I think you're better off with something like an iPad and a Nexus 7. I mean, why not? Why not have a little of everything so you feel like you're on top of 2 different operating systems and you get to compare and contrast, even though I know that they're not 2 direct competitors. That just seems like you'd get more out of it. How many people really have the new Retina MacBook Pro and then want to buy another MacBook Air? I know some people have that, but that's not the general population. That's not the majority of people who buy Apple products. I just wonder who's buying the iPad mini. Is it something for kids?
Well, it definitely seems like it's aimed at. It's rumored to be a lower priced device. It's supposed to have a 7.8-inch screen. I think that's the rumor. So it's probably going to reach a market that the iPad doesn't service right now. So if it's a lower cost device, it's going to be about going after things like the Fire, or going after the Nexus 7. It's going to be about people who are looking for their first tablet, I would imagine. Because I think a lot of people at this day and age are thinking, I have a phone and I have another device. That's either a laptop or it's a tablet or maybe even maybe a third device. But I think it's usually a 2-device kind of basic setup for most people. And so it wouldn't surprise me if people who have iPads don't want to buy a smaller iPad. There's really no big reason for that because it's not going to fit in your pocket. But you could have an iPhone because it does a lot more functions. It's got built-in wireless, and you can carry it around day by day. You're not going to carry around a 7-inch device, at least you can try to, but it's not going to fit in your pocket unless you have really big jeans, I guess.
All right, let's finish up with the randomizer.
Randomizer.
This is making its way around the internet. Apparently, a guy ordered a high-definition TV on Amazon, opened the box, and discovered he got an assault rifle.
Well, you could use that to get a TV, I think.
I've had this happen
I do not
before.
recommend using...
I mean, I didn't get an assault rifle, but I have ordered something from Amazon, opened the box, and it was something else. It happens sometimes, usually not in such dramatic fashion, though.
I understand that licenses are all a part of this, but just the idea that you'd get an assault rifle from Amazon anyway is like, whoa, that's a crazy thing to get in the mail. But on accident, that's a real big mistake.
And the guy who got it immediately called the police. Because he was just like,
what do you do?
Absolutely frightened. Like, is this some sort of a message?
Except what message is it? Yeah, I'm giving you the weapon.
Well, where's the other half of the story? Where's the guy who ordered the gun and got a TV? And he's like, what am I going to... I can't shoot a deer with this. I can't do anything with this thing. Unless he starts throwing it, I guess.
It was actually destined for a gun shop in Pennsylvania.
Well, I guess they could put up a nice lounge area with that TV for now. But this is a crazy story, just showing that Amazon sells everything at this point. I didn't know they sold assault rifles. I mean, why are they selling assault rifles?
Because people buy them.
Speaking of having the outside of the United States perspective, Vlad, what do you make of this story?
Well, first of all, even if I was in the United States, I'm pretty safe from this ever applying to me, because with my name, I'm not really going to be confused with somebody else's order.
Yeah,
it's pretty much unique. I mean, I could actually tell you, months and months after Facebook introduced, the custom URLs after Facebook.com, Vlad Savov was still just hanging out there. And I'm like, okay, I'll use that. And just recently, this is probably revealing something I shouldn't, but just recently I got the account Vlad Savov on Skype. Again, just hanging out there. Nobody's touching my name, which is brilliant. Yeah. I can just walk into any service. I don't need to be an app.net early supporter. It will just be there. We're waiting for me.
So,
but besides that, the external US perspective, I don't know. I mean, it's just like a really weird story, isn't it? You can say there should be more greater security in terms of greater security in terms of checks before delivering a gun to somebody.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
But people are surviving over here in Europe. People are really doing a great job of surviving without having guns. I have to tell you, self-protection without a gun, it's okay.
Although crime rate going down in the U.S., it's going up in Europe. Not because of guns, though.
For the Olympics.
Yeah.
People are afraid of Amazon.
Probably.
Someone's going to be sent a gun on accident.
Let's check what's on the calendar.
The unlocking tool Chevron WP7 for Windows phones is shutting down, and users who have used the tool will start seeing their phones relocking, but those users will also get a free membership to the App Hub, which is normally $99 a year, on Saturday, August 11th. Start preparing. Don't freak out. Iyaz Kickstarter funding is complete, as we mentioned earlier in the show. They did raise over $8.5 million and will start shipping in March and will arrive on doorsteps, if all goes well, April 2013.
I got one coming. I can't wait.
Lucky you.
Let's read an email, shall we?
Incoming message.
This email comes from the technical uplink lead on the Mars Curiosity rover mission. He says, in episode 559, you were talking about the upcoming OS upgrade on the rover. I wanted to write in with some answers to your questions. What's with the, as Iyaz put it, calculator-like specs? He answers, our computer has to be highly reliable, very low power, and robust against the higher radiation on the Martian surface. You have to make some trade-offs. Having written software for both the Opportunity and Curiosity rovers, I'm very happy with the performance boost we have with Curiosity. Question 2, why did we wait until after landing to upgrade? As noted, we have constraints on memory. Now that we've landed, we can replace the code that got us to Mars with extra functionality for the surface, like autonomous driving. Question 3, how do you avoid becoming a one-ton Martian brick? He says we have lots of redundancy in the system. We have an entirely separate backup computer, not just a drive, an entirely separate backup computer, which we won't update until we know the first computer is working. Each computer has backups of the current software, which the rover will switch to if it has problems with the new software. Current software that we'll fall back to if something goes wrong. And our first run of the new software is something we call a toe dip, where the rover tries out the new software, then switches back to the current version. It stays with it until we analyze the results of the toe dip and confirm all is well. And of course, we test the heck out of it. We've been developing and testing and upgrade procedures for months now. He said, I certainly wouldn't compare the upgrade to the thrills of landing night, but it will definitely be the most exciting operating system upgrade I've ever been a part of. Thank you, Dan Gaines, from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory and the Mars Science Laboratory team for that explanation. Fascinating.
I love this email. I was kidding about the specs, guys. It was a joke, but it has to be tested. And I was just so excited that we got an email from NASA, and I was like, wow, this is great. What an authority. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate that, Dan. Great explanation. We have the smartest audience in the world. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening and being part of that audience. Thank you for submitting stories in our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. We look at that every day to help figure out, like I said earlier in the show, what we're going to put in the show. And thank you, Vlad Savov, for joining us today. Great to have you along. Good insights.
No, thank you, guys.
Let folks know where they can find your work, and if you want to plug anything you're working on or anything like that, let us know.
Well, I'm always on The Verge, TheVerge.com, and you can find me on Twitter at the name that I said is only available for myself, Vlad Savov.
All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. You can find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and give us a call, leave us a voicemail. Our number is 260-TNT-SHOW. We'll be back on Friday with Shannon Morse, filling in for a vacationing Darren Kitchen. We'll see you then.